Bring in Mike Davis now, the founder and president of the Article 3 Project. He joins us on the phone. Hello, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so Jack Smith, he basically is now making, as far as I can tell, a public case that Donald Trump's an awful person, shouldn't be president of the United States, and he's using taxpayer resources to do it. What am I missing?
Yeah, and it's a political assassination attempt in election season. We have early voting that's already started. We have the election in about a month. And this, as you said, is an unprecedented procedure that Biden Kamala special counsel Jack Smith and this D.C. Obama judge have used here to go after Trump. They waited nearly 30 months to bring these unprecedented, I would say bogus charges against Trump down in Mar-a-Lago for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act, Trump's allowed to have. And then when Jack Smith realized that Trump actually got a fair judge in Judge Eileen Cannon, Jack Smith did this highly unusual second indictment in a second venue against the same defendant. And they got this D.C. Obama judge, Tanya Chutkan, who has made it her mission to railroad Trump during these proceedings. It was so bad that during the presidential immunity ruling back in June, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, not exactly a Trump fan, no Trump signs in his yard, no MAGA hats, the Chief Justice actually reprimanded the lower court judges, including Judge Chutkan, for railroading President Trump in this case.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a big deal when a federal judge declares something, right? That's an important thing. And I'm thinking about Eileen Cannon here because, as you mentioned, she's a fair judge in Florida. She was hearing this case on documents down in Florida, this document dispute between the Biden administration and President Trump. And she concluded that Jack Smith is unconstitutionally in the role. Put differently, Merrick Garland violated the Constitution and the law by appointing Jack Smith to be a special counsel of anything. How does this other Judge Chutkan case continue without that really essential issue being resolved?
Judge Cannon's ruling in Florida is not binding on Judge Chutkan, but it's certainly persuasive. And the fact that Judge Chutkan, who just got reversed by the Supreme Court in June in a monumental presidential immunity decision, you would think that she would take pause before she makes rulings and she does things or she doesn't do things in one of the most consequential cases that she'll ever have that could affect the next election. But she's proven, Judge Chutkan has proven over and over and over again that she's a partisan. She's a political hack in a robe.
Well, this is why I'm kind of tempted to believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but that the Supreme Court should be intervening here because I know it was Justice Clarence Thomas who's indicated in his own opinions that he thinks it's very much an open question whether or not Jack Smith is even allowed to do this. Why isn't the Supreme Court intervening here?
That's a good question. So on presidential immunity, when you're dealing with immunity, you can get that issue resolved before the trial, before the appeal. You can get that resolved up front. I don't know if you can get the issue of special counsel jurisdiction resolved up front. But what's going to happen here is Judge Chutkan is going to rule for Jack Smith on this next round of presidential immunity arguments. Jack Smith clearly has it wrong again. Chutkan will go along with it again, mindlessly, dumbly go along with it again. That will go up to the D.C. Circuit again. They'll probably get it wrong again because they're Democrat hacks on the D.C. Circuit. Obama stacked the D.C. Circuit with partisans, and it will get back up to the Supreme Court. So the bottom line is this is not going to get resolved anytime soon, and certainly not before the election.
That's the question. That was what I wanted to ask, because we've got just a little over 30 days until the election. So we get this big dramatic filing that MSNBC is very exercised about right now ahead of the election, but we're not going to see any meaningful progress on the case until after the election. So what is this, if not just election meddling? It strikes me that the only point of this filing was designed to interfere in the election.
It's 100%. It is partisan lawfare and election interference by Biden Kamala special counsel Jack Smith and D.C. Obama judge Tanya Chutkan. There's no other way you can look at this. They waited 3 years to bring these charges. They couldn't wait until after the election. They couldn't let Trump file a motion to dismiss the superseding indictment and then have the government respond, which is the normal course. They couldn't do that because they had to get this out there in the public domain before the
Yes.
election because their goal is election interference.
I do want to address some of the contents because I think it's important that we talk about this. And I really do think I look at this and I'm looking at basically that President Trump, just as he did in public, was apparently in private saying over and over again that he was convinced that he had won the 2020 election. And he was telling everybody within earshot, including many government officials, that he wanted them to dig in on these questions. Jack Smith is construing that behavior as some sort of crime. Strikes me that these are exercises of the First Amendment and a legally allowed contestation of an election.
It is not a crime to object to a presidential election. It is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Democrats objected to Republican wins in 1969, 2001, 2005, and 2017. We don't see Hillary Clinton and Al Gore and John Kerry in prison, right? They have taken the political process and tried to politicize, weaponize, and criminalize it because they fear American voters on November 5th. And so they are trying to do everything they can to stop Trump. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to throw him in prison for the rest of his life. They tried to take him off the ballot. And when that didn't work, they underfunded his Secret Service protection and tried to have his head taken off.
It is such a bizarre filing to read because in it includes like some people within Trump's orbit saying, hey, we think this is over, or we don't think you won, or we think the challenges aren't going to work. So what? I don't understand how it's a crime for somebody to give you countervailing advice and you not to believe them.
It's not a crime. None of this is a crime. The only crime that Trump possibly could have committed on January 6th is if they have evidence that he incited the riots. They don't have evidence because it doesn't exist. It's to the contrary. Trump told his supporters to go peacefully to the Capitol. And they look, regardless of what you think about the January 6th protest, they had a First Amendment right to be there. They had a permit from the National Park Service to be there. It is when it got out of control and turned into a riot is where it became criminal, right? And unless you can show that Trump incited that riot on January 6th, he did not commit a crime.
Of course. And you can't demonstrate that he did anything but accept the results of the election as an official matter because he leaves on January 20th. He goes to Florida. He heads away. Joe Biden takes over as president of the United States that day. What is that if not accepting yet objecting to the way it was conducted?
Yeah, and I don't want to hear the Democrats pretend like they're the party of democracy. Look what they've done. They tried to bankrupt Trump, throw him in prison, take him off the ballot. When that failed, they're trying to destroy the Supreme Court that got in their way. They've intentionally underfunded Trump's Secret Service protection. They almost got him killed. And when that failed, when Biden failed at all that, what did they do? They gutted Joe Biden in a bloodless coup. They threw out 14 million Democrat primary votes, and they installed Kamala Harris in a backroom deal when she did not win one Democrat primary vote for president in her life.
Yeah, no, it's crystal clear the so-called threats to democracy and where they're coming from. As President Trump said many times now, he's even taken a bullet for democracy, which is a very unfortunate feature of this election. Mike Davis, thank you as always, sir. Really appreciate your wisdom on this.